So in this video sequence, we're going to look at setting up the connection between Siebel and OPA using the two service ports that we configured in the previous video. Just to remind ourselves a moment, I'm going to go into my Siebel call center. This is my thin client, and I'm going to look at the inbound web services. I'm going to need the base URL from the service port, so I'm going to copy that now. In addition, I'm going to need some more information from the operations later on. So let's paste this in and go ahead and connect to the OPA Hub. Log into your OPA Hub. Hopefully you followed the video and got it installed earlier on. And go straight away and create a connection. The connection will define how these two applications talk to each other. It breaks down into several parts. The name is not for our purposes important. We're using a type web service. Paste the URL into the URL spot. There we go. If you're not familiar with collections, just leave that as it is, but don't forget to click the allow button. If you have other collections, don't forget to allow them as well. The version. Make sure that in the version list you choose 12.2.5 in my case, and make sure that you edit the SOAP action pattern so that it matches. The SOAP action pattern is provided in the white paper. Notice the extension at the end, CONN_ followed by curly bracket, 0 curly bracket. This corresponds to the details of the operations of the web service that you imported. So if you go back into Siebel and look at the operations, you'll see they all have the same prefix. If you make another web service, choose a different prefix and set up the connection accordingly. Now that we have the connection in good health, we can go to our Oracle policy modeling and log in to the very same hub. I'm using an author username this time to distinguish between the administrator and an author. And there are no projects currently on this hub, which is hardly surprising. But if I create a new project, let's call it Siebel Opa Test Demo, that'll do. And I'll change the project region to English. If I can find it, I'll just press a key, that'll find it quickly. Of course, United Kingdom. It's the region and the language, that'll do. If I now go and, for example, click the hub location, I can make sure that I connect to the hub for my data mapping. I'll go through the same process of logging in, and I'll be able to select my web service, and now I will see that my web service provides a connection to Siebel. If for whatever reason you change or update the integration object, one of the things you'll need to do is refresh this in here. But now you can see I can load data for one of the business components, and I can save, create a new record or not save, or create a new child record and so on. Fairly typical settings for a data connection. Good. So this is a proof that check alive and get metadata are working. As soon as you set up a data connection, you'll see an error message in the interview telling you that you need a submit button in order to trigger the submit back to Siebel. So just for these purposes, I'm going to create a new screen, select the next button and change the next button. If I can find it. Have to extend this window a bit, I think. There we go. OPM has a habit of losing some buttons. There it is. There's the next. Just about. That'll do. And change that to submit so that in my interview I can submit data, then the error message should disappear. So this is your typical process of collecting information, submitting it, and then the interview is complete. Good. So our check alive and our get metadata appear to be working okay. It means now, of course, that I can go ahead and create an attribute using my Oracle Policy Modeler, such as the customer first name of type text, and I can map it into a particular field in the primary business component. such as first name. Because I'm using contact, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner that contact is associated with global. For those of you who don't know OPA that well, you can think of global as the root business component, so it's contact. I can map in and load at start, which means the data will appear in the interview. Sometimes we call this preceding. And I can also map it out, which you can think of as being pushed back to the calling application, in this case, pushed back to the Siebel application. I give each attribute a name because that name will be useful later on. For example, when receiving data from OPA, it'll help me identify which field is which. But at this stage, at least, it looks like our connection, as far as the design time elements are concerned, is working fine. In the input mapping, I can now go and check that my first name is mapped to this attribute, and in the output mapping, I can go and do exactly the same thing. So you can begin to see the connection between the Siebel metadata and the OPA metadata as well. Good. The first name that you see here, you can think of that as the external XML tag. It's the XML tag that will show up later on in Siebel, for example, when you're processing the responses from OPA. Good. Looks good so far, and let's carry on.